Ẹ káàbọ̀ sílé ológun. Ilé ológun. Akíkanjú tó bá lóògùn ní pẹ̀tẹ́ ogun.
Adífáforí orí ń bẹ ló pèrè òun nìkan ṣoṣo kí nínú.
Ẹni tí ò lè dá ni wọ́n ti ń dènà déni. Àjẹkù ìyá ni ọ̀jẹ̀ bí wọ́n pé wà wọ́n nípe lọ.
Guys, I think for the first time in a long time, I'm seeing a Nigerian movie shot with a sense of direction. A movie shot with the viewers in mind. A movie shot with the mindset of professionalism. Like, we have to get this right and that's final. You know, that is how this movie was shot because it is clearly seen in the results that we now have as the output that we all have seen. I mean, we should all have seen it by now. I am glad with what we saw in Jagun, and I'm glad that my expectations were not cut short. Not because this movie is totally flawless, but because, I mean, it has taken us a little step higher and unleashed something I can boastfully call a new era in the Nigerian Yoruba epic movie world. And I'm really glad for what we have in front of us to talk about. Let's get to the review of the movie Jagun. I know you want to hear my thoughts, so let's do that today. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Moyosarolua. I'm glad you clicked to watch this video as we get to talk yet again. I told you I'm not going to leave you dry and empty as I am back to work fully, back-to-back conversation, back-to-back review like we'd always do here on this channel. Yes, if you clicking my channel for the first time, this is the type of content you have to expect because on this channel, I review movies, I share my thoughts, I share my works, I share reviews about places, everything I find interesting basically. But then first on the list will definitely be movie reviews, as you can see in the course of my channel history. So yes, thank you for clicking to watch and remember to subscribe if you're yet to do so. I'm glad that we can gather again in such a short time to talk about yet another Nigerian movie, and this time I'm really excited, just like I was the last time when we talked about the movie Orisha. I hope you've seen that review. If you're yet to see it, make sure you click after watching this one. But yeah, this time we're talking about Jagun, as I promised that I will be back in no time for the review, and here I am, guys. It's a lot. I have a lot to talk about, and I hope that we can do that, you know, following the flow of how I would usually do my movie review. Now, Jagun, what does it mean? The warrior. That's the movie we are reviewing today, and I will try as much as possible to give a balanced side to this particular conversation because I think that before I even decided to sit for this review, I'd read so many thoughts from different people, but most part of the thought I've seen online is that of optimism, that of joy, excitement as to what different people saw while they watched the movie. And I think that that would form the basis of my thoughts at the end of the day, not without pointing out the other side of the divide, which I think I also saw from different people, and I totally agree with them. So yeah, it's going to be very balanced as we dive into dissecting this masterpiece, this work of art that is getting a lot of people excited. And you may wonder why. Why is because, like I said in my review of Orisha, we've not seen so many Nigerian epic movies in the cinema in recent times. So the return of epic movies to the cinema has given the Nigerian cinema goers a different, I mean, it has given them a diverse option of movies to always check out. And you would see that many people would say, I don't go to the cinema. I don't really go film. They'll be shooting. They'll be shooting. People have reservations about the type of movies in the cinema. But now that we are not having diverse movies, I mean, we're having family movies, we are having thriller, we are having, diverse type of movies. I think it's a good time for Nigerian cinema goers, if you ask me. And Jagun Jagu also is here for us. I mean, Orisha is the one I was referring to, which is currently in the cinema. Jagun Jagun decided not to go to the cinema. In fact, it came closer to the people because it's easier for you to stream a movie for a lot of people than to go to the cinema. And in Nigeria, it's a case of when movies are on streaming sites, it's easily distributed to other illegal sites where people can easily download and stuff. So I think that this even comes closer home to a lot of people, and so many people would have seen the movie by now. That said, let's get to how this review would go. If you're familiar with my review, you would know that I'll be talking about the story, the actors, the characters, if you want to put it that way, the cinematography, the sound, the costume, the language, the various tools adopted to tell the story, and so many other things in between, as well as the long and short of the entire story at the end of the day. So yes, those are some of the things we'll be looking at as we dissect this movie, and I'll also be telling you my best performance for the movie, and finally we're going to end with a rating. Okay. All right, so one of the things you need to know about this story is, but this story, although fiction, but actually has a very interesting theme and links to a cultural and historical story, as it was back in the day with warriors, how they were trained, how they became powerful, how they always wanted more. I mean, these are stories we've always seen, and it also kind of takes us back to how dominant and territorial the some kingdoms were at the time, especially Yoruba Kingdom. I mean, not just Yoruba Kingdom; it was diverse for all ethnicity. Once there was a warrior, once there is a territory, the need to conquer the other territory, exchange of slave, exchange of goods, interference of the white. I mean, that was also introduced in a conversation in Jagu Jagu as well. These things happen in the past. So at the end of the day, we might call this story fiction, but I think it also touched so many historical link as we have it in our history or in our culture. So yeah, Jagu Jagu is a film by Femi Adebayo Salami. The story was written by his brother Tijani Adebayo. I think that's what I saw. I think one of the many things I don't like about Netflix is, as much as I wanted to watch the end credit and see everybody that did what, Netflix will be recommending new movie, and then you would just see the credit in a small box. Like why you do that? Why you do that? But notwithstanding, I'm going to follow through with some of the things I can remember in line with who did what for this particular movie. The movie was directed by, I think there were a lot of directors. Yes, I think I saw Tijani Adebayo's name. I think Femi Adebayo worked as a producer or something for the movie. Itele, the icon, I think I saw him as a director as well. I saw consulting director as Femi's father, who is Adebayo Salami. I mean, there were so many people who did great works in this particular movie, but ultimately we know that this is a film by Femi Adebayo. And when I first saw the trailer of this film, I was pretty excited. I mean, I was also scared because we had a king of thieves, and I was wondering, okay, so are we not going to have similar story? Is it all going to be okay? This one fight this one, that one fight this one. But interestingly, the two stories are so different, so apart. I mean, there is no link. I can't even see a repetition of what was done in King of Thieves and what was done in Jagun Jagun. I can't. As a matter of fact, Jagun Jagun takes it a step higher, if you ask me, especially in the usage of a lot of storytelling tools and devices that we'll be talking about as we continue. So the story centers on a warrior who at a school he had so much power, and he positioned himself as one who would train people from different communities, different villages, different town. And the idea is young people would come there to train and be able to go back to their own villages for to help their own community in times of war, because you know that ultimately at the time it was just about conquest and all that stuff. So that was the idea. But in this case, and the warrior was so strong that when some kings were having issues with their villages, they would employ him to go do their dirty work. Aha. So it's interesting to see that that kind of person is who you think would train your young people and then let them go to become strong, so that when he now has issue with your village, what will now happen? So I felt like it was jokes on them. I felt like jokes on those kings, jokes on those people who thought that sending their young boys to that school is the best thing for them. But that's ultimately what the story is about. The young people were supposed to go to that school, get trained, and then return back to their villages. But we saw that reverse was the case. And then while the story was unveiling, we were introduced to who Jagu Jagu is and what it does and how it would actually stand up for his own in the sense that kings that he had alliances with. And that's why we saw the first scene or the opening scene being that he was going into help a king who was under attack, and we were introduced to is you know the all of Jagu Jagu in that case, the fury, the power, and everything that it possessed, and we saw how it was able to conquer. So yeah, that was what the story ultimately was about, and we saw very amazing people take prominent roles in this story. And this is one film that I feel like making a cameo appearance made a lot of sense. So the film had Femi Adebayo as Jagu Jagun, the warrior himself, Ogunjimi, yeah, that's his name in the movie. We had his the man who later became his undoing, who is in person of Adedimeji Lateef. I think is a fantastic actor. Macaroni, Yemi Elesho, Tijani Adebayo featured at some point. Faithia Balogun was there. We had Bimbo Ademoye. There was Odunlade Adekola. There was Muyiwa Authentic. Adebayo's father was in it. Pejo Gumola was in it. I mean, it's a whole lot. Aisha Lawal, Woli Agba, so many people featured in this movie. How would I forget Bukumi Adeshino as well? It was a movie with a lot of stars that were but it was a movie with a lot of stars, and I think for the first time I can say that stars were well utilized in this movie. This is the first Nigerian movie I would see so many stars and they were rightly utilized. And that goes to show the opening scene which I earlier talked about, and how Odulade Adekola, that particular scene was so memorable that you can't even forget, even though that is the only scene Odunlade featured. So it's so interesting to see how people can feature in a movie, have just one scene, and it is a memorable scene that has a valid link to the entire story that is being told. And that was one of the many things that made Jagu Jagu stand out for me as a person. So yes, that's all the people I can remember, even though there were so many other people. And then gradually the story began to unveil. I really wouldn't want to say all the stories or all the things we saw in the story in the movie for those who are yet to see it, but that's just the summary of what the movie is about. And then when That's just a summary of what the movie is about. So let's quickly get to some highlights and some of the things that worked and some of the things that did not work in this particular movie. I think that one of the many things I would say work definitely to almost 70% or 80% will be the cinematography of this movie, which I think is very good. You know, I said earlier on that this is one of the Nigerian movies I'm seeing in a very long time that was shot with a sense of direction. And not because they did anything way above, which I feel like they were very thoughtful, but because they were looking from our lens, because that's the only way you can shoot a movie like this that's almost perfect. The cinematography was so good, and it was good in the sense that everything was in place. They were thoughtful enough to say, okay, this is what I want them to see, and this is what we are seeing. One of the scenes that made me know how intentional these people were is the scene of how when we were introduced to the school eventually and people could go into the school, and that approach view of when they were inside the school, and how we had a perimeter security going round in horses. As distant as those security personnel were, or the warriors that were guarding the school, doing the perimeter, whatever, like they were just at the perimeter watching and guarding the school, as far as they were, and as insignificant as it might have seemed for other directors or movie makers, that was so spot on. And I'm like, nah, these people were thoughtful. And for every time we were introduced to the school, we always would see security taking interesting position, you know, just there. It was as though, you know, when you go into a military barracks and you are seeing sniper in one corner, you are seeing that was, I mean, it was intentional. They were so intentional, and how those people were positioned, what they were doing, how they did what they did, it was just really beautiful to see. And the camera was the cinematography was so intense that they didn't have to, but they did it. You know, that kind of thing. Like, it's your film. If you didn't show us, we probably wouldn't have missed anything. So they didn't have to, but they introduced some very interesting things that just made me feel like you guys are awesome. Another scene that I think was carried by the weight of both cinematography and post is that particular scene where we were introduced to the power of Ademeji, and that's the part of the tree falling off when he was going to the school. That scene was so delicate that anything could have gone wrong, but the power of their minds and how they were able to picture and act it out in line with the cinematographer, the actor himself, and the editors at the end of the day just gave power to that scene. Another scene that power came out from the work done by those people would definitely be the scene where Jagu sent his people to go conquer this guy who turned out to this guy who had a fight with his ally, that's Dele Odule's younger brother, who is Kolawole Ajayemi, that's Tony Abraham's husband. That particular scene of that fight, I mean, take a look at what we were seeing, everything they wanted us to see. And big ups to the stunt guy. We're definitely going to come to that conversation, who did an amazing job, you know, putting that particular stunt together and making it look so real. And that would definitely be a stand-up, a scene that deserved a standing ovation for a lot of people, as I've seen the conversation online already. So yes, cinematography was good to the level of 80% or even more, if you ask me. Let's talk about the story itself. The script, they had a solid script. They had a solid script. And solid script in the sense that it translated to how the characters were able to embody their roles. Nobody in that movie was subpar. Nobody. Everybody brought their A game. And that's what a good script will do for you sometimes, because already we have people who knows what they people who know what they are doing, right? And then you give them a good script, and then you just expect them to, you know, just kill it. That's just it. They don't have any other choice. So yes, the script was really good, and that's obviously had its place in how the people who acted their roles came about what they were going to do at the end of the day. So yes, I give this the script really did the script was definitely in check for me. Another thing that would be in check would be the costume, the set, and the props. I'm going to put these three together very quickly. Guys, I can't explain enough how much I love the sets this guy's built for this movie. Every point was a hit. Every single point. I love particularly the set, the view from the top of Jagu's home. That particular view from the top, the entrance of that home, of his chambers, that entrance on top of the hill into that view was so beautiful. And then the school itself, that chamber in the middle where they would sit and fight, it is so beautiful. The everything they use as obstacle for their training, I loved the view so much. I don't know who built the set for them, but the person did an amazing job. An amazing job. And this is a movie that, like I said, it didn't have to. They could just do open ground, and we'll still get what they're saying. But they decided to execute it so well that I am totally in awe of everything that I saw that brought this movie together. So yes, the set was gorgeous, and the cinematography made us see a lot of things that made me be like, oh God, this is so beautiful, that kind of thing. And yes, the props, I loved their costume, the props. I loved how they also centered a lot of things in between in the course of the movie. That would lead me to the costume. The costume for me was, I'll probably give it a 760 because I saw some modern infusion of props, like their shoes, their slippers, and all that stuff. Some modern infusion that I feel like took away a bit from the entire thing that we saw in the movie. But in all, I think that the props were mostly apt, as the case may be for the epic movie that we were watching. Away from prop set and all of that, let's quickly touch on the sound. I think that the sound was sounding. If it were another movie, I probably would say that the sound was a bit loud. But sure, you see the loudness of the sound, especially the soundtrack. At some point in the movie, it was needed. We needed it to be loud because we wanted it to take us into what we're about to see. I loved the sound so much. I love the soundtracks even more. They were powerful, they were intense. They drew us into every scene and every action that was happening, and they were just where they were supposed to be. And you could see the chant, you could see the special effect added to the voicing, the shaking, the loudness, oh God, it was good. It was good. Like I said, it might be considered a bit too loud, for some cases because they were loud. But that loudness self was pepe. That was how I felt. And it was really good. It was so good. The effect, in line with the costume, in line with the makeup as well. This is the first time, and I give kudos that I would see tribal marks, and I think that Kule Afolayan needs to go find out who did the tribal marks in this movie because they might need that person. The tribal marks done on the face of Kolawole Adeyemi. For a while I was asked, is this not Kolawole? Because I almost could not recognize him. It was believable. It was this is in fact, I still complain about the tribal marks in Orisha. But this particular one, whoever did it, they need to continue to use this person. They need to use, because it was believable. It was so good. It didn't look fake. It didn't look like it was not ease. It looked like it was follow come. So this person needs to be the first choice for that kind of makeup. It was good. I loved it. Even though that particular effect was not used a lot, but on the face of one person who they decided should own a tribal mark, they did it well. Kudos, kudos, kudos. I loved it. And yeah, generally, you can see that of all the things I've tried to pinpoint, they were majorly good stuff that happened with this movie. And it just really made me think that they were really intentional. You could see the communal what will I call it now? The communal view of how this movie was made. Femi Adebayo is one person who is big on collaboration, and that has continued to help him become better and better. See, I keep saying it. As a movie producer, you cannot be everything. Let people do their work. And you can really tell that he allowed people do their work. He brought people, so many people into this project and allowed them freely express their professional skill or talent or whatever. I have seen a lot of review and from Nia Kimalayo, who also worked on editing and VFX of the movie, which I think VFX was really good as well. It was beautiful. The bee, how the bee, usually in epic movies, in that bee, when the bee called him, they would have done it that it was seeing a picture of the wall, but instead they used the same bee VFX to form a battle. No, I don't even know what to call it, but that was really good. The Agemo feel when he summoned Agemo was really good. VFX was good. I know that the initial VFX with cutting of Modunlade's hand, but that is not even VFX. That's probably costume issue, right? Yeah, the FX, special effect and costume. But at the end of the day, on totality, both the special effect and the VFX generally was good, was good. I wouldn't even fault it for any reason because it took us a step higher than we usually see. I mean, look at that editing of olden time and Agemo doing the thing, the effect of night to day. Those things were solid. I won't even lie. Editing was good for this movie. Big up to Nia Kimolayo and every other person. And like I said, again, I'm going to beg all producers, let people do their job. Femi Adebayo obviously allows for create freedom of creativity, and that is always working for him in the results that we see. Finally, guys, the twist and turn in this story was really good. We didn't really know where the story was going. Even though people will say, I know you will fall in love with Keaton, but to be truthful, I wasn't really sure, and we saw that happen. We didn't know that Kito was going to turn out to be Agemo. We saw that happen. So many things that we probably didn't see coming, but we saw that them happen eventually. And it's just really interesting how everything turned out. Again, intentionality, collaboration, communal work, and a lot of other things involved to bring us this particular masterpiece that we have. A lot to say, to be very honest, but at the end of the day, one thing I would say is this movie was solid. My best performance in this movie, a lot of people will probably give, I mean, I've seen people who are for the stuntman Adams, who I think is fantastic. And some other people are for Adedimeji. Some other people are for Femi Adebayo. But I think my best performance would definitely be Itele, the icon. That guy embodied something that I can't even begin to explain. I wish he didn't die. I wish there was still some, I know this movie will have a continuation, but I wish that there was still something to see from that man in that particular movie. But I think it's my best performance. Meji was fantastic. I heard I even broke his leg and all that stuff in the course of the movie. I think he even had to build up for the movie, but it was fantastic. Femi was fantastic. But my favorite person, because I've not even seen so many movies of him, would definitely be Itele, who I think was good. Something about Yinka's Quadri role that I'm yet to really understand. His silence was a lot, but his action was so much. I'm sure that in the next part, I probably would see a lot more from that character. Yeah, so generally, it was good. I enjoyed it. The story was good, good, good. And it is definitely an excellent way to introduce us again to Nigerian epic movie, and I love how it was beautifully done. If I were to rate the movie, generally I would give it 8 over 10 without thinking back. In fact, 9 over 10 without thinking back, if I want to be totally biased, because this was a good way to tell a story. Guys, I could talk from now to tomorrow because there's a lot to say about this movie, but I think I have to wrap it up now and wait for the next movie that would make me come here excitedly to talk to you guys yet again. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video, and let me know what you think about the movie in the comment section down below. Till next time when I come your way, goodbye.